Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ful-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Liverpool preview is Drew. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, mate.
And AJ, how you doing?
Doing well, my friend. Doing well.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks since we managed to talk about a game of Fulham, which has probably been a nice rest for quite a lot of people. It's been a bit of a mental time at the moment, being a Fulham fan, as we're all aware, especially with stuff going on outside of the playing surface. We did try our best to cover some of this going on during the international break. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, do go and have a look at the episode that we recorded, the special we recorded during this break about contracts coming to an end this summer and next summer. It's well worth a watch. I think it's good conversation between us and what we think Fulham should do. But we're back to the grind, back to another preview. Fulham away at Anfield on Saturday night. Difficult game, but arguably a really decent time to be going and play against Liverpool. AJ, we'll start as we always do, mate. Uh, as far as Marco Silva's press conference goes, it looks like we've basically got the players we were expecting to have available, fit, and ready to go. What are you expecting to see squad-wise?
Well, I'd imagine there'll be very much a "if it's not broke, don't fix it" approach from the Burnley victory, obvious, uh, with the obvious switch of Castagna for Tete if he's fully fit again. Outside of that, I expect very much the same. I can't see anyone really dropping out of the squad apart from maybe Joshua King being dropped for Emil Smith Rowe, just because that's a very Marco Silva thing to do. But if he does do that, I think it'd be very criminal considering the goal and assist that Josh King got in the previous game.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. We know from looking at Fulham's press conference that Harrison Reed is out. Tete is still out injured according to Marco Silva, so
Okay,
we
so
will see.
Tete is still out,
Yeah, and obviously Kevin's still coming back from injury.
of course.
The good news is obviously is that Calvin Bassey's fit, considering he missed the Nigeria games with a back injury, which is good for us defensively because he's by clear margins our best centre back this season. Drew, arguably a really good time to be playing Liverpool. They're having a really bad stretch of games at the moment. They've not been playing well at all. Uh, they were quite bad in Europe during the week, and they got another because of that. They've got a big game in Europe coming up at home next week. What do you think do you think we can take advantage of that? Do you think we should be looking to take advantage of that, or is it just a coincidental thing?
Yeah, I mean we've got to take advantage of that. The Anfield crowd won't be up for it because they're a bunch of tourists and they have no respect for us. So it's going to be very hard to get them up for it. Plus the fact it's a 5:30 kickoff, so there's going to be a lot of people with curfews they've got to be in for. I mean, you look at their last 5 games; they've lost 3 of them. So they're not having a good run. Salah has come out swinging at legends because he's been criticised in Liverpool since his announcement that he's going to be leaving at the end of the season, and a lot of people around Anfield are slapping their foreheads because they realise they should have taken the Saudi money last summer and run. If we go there and we are patient and we keep the crowd from getting into it, which should be something we're capable of doing, bearing in mind, like I say, they're not going to be up for it because they're not going to be interested in us and they're going to expect to roll over us anyway. We can definitely get something out of this. Liverpool aren't to be feared. This is not the Liverpool, of Kenny Dalglish or Klopp. I mean, this is basically Slot has taken Klopp's team, did nothing with it, allowed it to win the title, and then spent a hell of a lot of money taking them backwards. If we get our noses in front, it's going to be really interesting. Because at the Cottage, I mean, they were lucky to be 2-1 up. That was one of the worst Liverpool teams I've seen. I just hope we're brave. Because we can definitely get something out of this. Now I've said that, we're probably going to lose 4-0, but we shouldn't go this in fear. We shouldn't go there in fear at all. If we're disciplined, we keep our shape, keep the crowd quiet. The Anfield is going to turn in our favour because Liverpool know they're not playing well. The fans are split on Slot, and that's being polite. So it's not going to take much for the atmosphere to crank up the pressure on them. So yeah, I mean, but you've got to respect the fact they do have some talent, But we can definitely get something out of this.
Yeah, look, I think that when we look at it, when you earmark games, you look at games that are winnable. It's really odd to say this when you're going to Anfield and playing Liverpool away, but this is a winnable game. On paper, this is a very winnable game, especially with the injuries that Liverpool have. Arguably, one of their best players is Alisson Becker. He's injured. Their outfield players aren't performing greatly. You got Mo Salah, who's said he's leaving. He's not really had a great season. There's not really anyone blowing Liverpool out of the water at the moment, which is such a weird thing to say when you play Liverpool. And we know that when we play Liverpool, it doesn't really matter because they'll end up scoring like two absolute worldies from nowhere during the game anyway, because they always bloody do. But it's going to be an interesting one. I think that the game of the Cottage earlier on in the year, yes, it's remembered because of Harrison Reed's absolutely like thunder bastard into the top hand corner of the last kick of the game to get us a draw. But we were exceptionally unlucky in that game to even get a draw. We should have won. It was one of those games that we probably didn't take as many chances as we should have taken. We were a little bit slack getting the ball into the box and moving on from there. It's one of those things. I think that if Fulham can play how Fulham can play, and we know how good we can be, we should be looking to be able to win this game of football. But it's Liverpool at Anfield, and that means that it can be and it will be difficult. AJ, that we discussed pre the international breaks, and we were looking at players, and some of the players that look leggy and they look like they need the rest. Good 2.5 weeks break is going to do an awful lot of our squad a world of good. Players like, you look at Calvin Bassey, who looked tired before he went away. You probably even Timothy Castagna playing in instead of Tete, the break probably doing well. Are there any players that come to your mind from the Fulham side that this 2 weeks of being fully together with the team, but having to be able to have that get match day break, that means legs can rest a bit, we can recharge. That's actually going to do us a world of good.
I'd like to say Raul Jimenez, but wasn't he away with Mexico? So it's
He
kind of
was away
hard
with
to.
Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably one of the few players that desperately needed 2 weeks off. Outside of that, I don't think there's anyone I'm extremely worried about. Wilson might have had a knock to his confidence, obviously losing with Wales and being knocked out at the World Cup qualifiers. Outside of that, it's all pretty free roam. I think we should be okay. It's a strange one because this time last year I was absolutely certain there was no possibility of us going to Anfield and getting any sort of result because they were in the world of form, and I sort of ate my words with that one. This time around, I think we're almost favourites for the game, apart from the fact that it's at home. Like most people would put a cheeky bet aside, thinking we could potentially do Liverpool, which begs the question: how Fulhamish are we going to be in this result? I really hope not at all, but alas, very Fulhamish to lose the games where we're expected or potentially could win.
Yeah, it is typical of us. Every time we get really positive about what's potentially going to come, we're usually met with a little bit of a kick in the bollocks. And every time we're negative, we tend to put a performance in, which is pretty impressive. I think that, if you ignore all the stuff that's going on off of the players' surface of Fulham at the moment, players' contracts, managers' contracts, and all that sort of stuff, we need to look at what we can potentially do going into the end of this season. And we spoke about it pre-breakup about, Europe and how ambitious have to be Europe. It's still very much in touch. Because of how well our English teams are doing well in Europe this year, it's not out of the realms that 8th place gets Europe this season. Potentially, there's a weird way that 9th could get Europe, but 8th getting Europe is not out of the question. And for a club like Fulham, we should 100% be breaking everything we can to be getting into even into the Conference League, because it's a big opportunity to win some silverware for Fulham, and it's a good thing. And who doesn't want that opportunity of doing that? Drew, looking at Europe and our potential of maybe making it, what's more important with maybe making Europe this year? Is it that it gives us something to look forward to next year, or is it that it might just be the sort of the law to bring some players in that we know that Fulham are ambitious to try and bring in? It may even help us with a manager keeping this one, or even searching for a new one, should that be the case come the end of the summer.
It's arguably all three, Ash. I mean, you've made three very good arguments there for why it's important. I don't believe Silva's staying, and I don't really want to get into Silva again because I am sick to death of the sideshow. If we qualify for Europe, Silva will see it as arguably strengthening his reputation. From the club's point of view, it will be a more attractive job if and when Silva leaves, because there'll be obviously a European competition to focus on. It will also, in theory, enable us to become more attractive to players, not just managers. However, the flip side of that argument is, when have Fulham ever been forward planning about squad building? I mean, you've already mentioned our show that we did over the international break about players' contracts expiring. There is, and I'm not being pessimistic, I would love to get into Europe, but there is a legitimate argument to be made that if we did make Europe without significant investment, we would more than likely be staring at the bottom end of the Premier League than the top, because we do not have the strength in depth to run a European domestic league and domestic cup gauntlet. So while it's exciting, you cannot help but feel or temper it with some realism with regards how the boardroom plan for the off-season and plan for player contract negotiations, player departures. So yeah, I mean, but we've got to go for it. I mean, if you look at it at the moment, we're 5 points behind Liverpool. They're in 5th and we're in 9th. I mean, if you just said at the beginning of the season, with 6 games to go, we'll be 5 points behind Liverpool, everyone would have bitten your hand off. So it's still there to play for. Unfortunately for us, we've got a run of games against teams that have all got something to play for. So I don't know, but we've got to give it a shot.
Yeah, I think realistically, if we've been saying it all season, right? It's about time that Fulham start showing the ambition, or this is when we'll get the signs of the ambition. I think that we have to be realistic, and we have to go, look, no matter what happens, right? Fulham have got a lot of work to do this summer in terms of players in, players out. If we get into Europe, that adds to that. There's even more work to have to be done, and it's whether or not you trust those in those positions to get that done properly or whatever. But for me, the biggest thing, obviously, is just that if there's something worth fighting for, we should be fighting for it. And it would be an absolute travesty if we genuinely let this season just filter out like we have done the last 3 or 4 years, because we're playing some decent football. We're not playing bad football. The annoying thing is we're just so inconsistent that it's really starting to get annoying. AJ, quickly before we move on to talk about our ones to watch and our player predictions for this game, your thoughts on the potential of making Europe? Does it excite you potentially making it into the Conference League, or do you see it more of it might affect us more in the Premier League than do us good?
talking entirely hypothetically because I find it very difficult at the moment until we're in a position of being in Europe to really discuss Europe. But talking entirely hypothetically, I'd take a season in Europe even if it means we drop into the bottom half of the Premier League table. I think there's enough quality in and around the squad to prevent us from going down, and I would take a 14th, 15th finish for a decent European campaign.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I think I'm in two minds personally, right? As I say, I'd love to get Europe. It's such a great thing to get into Europe. And it's not even like the old argument of, it means that you don't get to play at 3 o'clock on Saturday. It still stands because, when was the last time we had a string of games at 3 o'clock on a Saturday anyway? Like it's one of those things, isn't it? That it just means that for me, the exposure for the club getting into Europe is massive. If it means that we can bring in some bigger, better players, then that's massive too. It's just whether or not we can actually do that with the infrastructure and the people we have in place, which is the question, isn't it? But let's finish this one, and we always do, lads. Let's talk about players to watch and give a scoreline prediction for this one. Drew, I'll start with you with this one, mate. Can I have a couple of players to watch from both teams and a scoreline prediction, please?
For Fulham, for two very different reasons, Wilson and Robinson. Wilson because he's talismanic, and for us this season he's caught lightning in a bottle. But also because he's 6 games away from his contract expiring, and Liverpool apparently have been casting an eye over him, and we all know that he came from the Liverpool Academy. The other one for us is going to be, if he starts, will be Robinson, because the rumour is that Liverpool aren't happy with Kirkes, and Andy Robertson, that is, has announced that he's going to be leaving Anfield at the end of the season. So I do wonder if Liverpool are going to be looking at Robinson. And Robinson himself may want to put in a really good performance to put himself in the shop window, because, as we've discussed previously, there may be a legitimate chance that after the World Cup he leaves the club. For Liverpool, well, that's a toughie. They had to keep. You go to keep. Their striker, you go. TK, thank you, AJ. Sorry, swallowed my teeth there. I really rate him. I think it was funny a few years ago we were linked to him. I think he's a fabulous player, and I do wonder why they spent all that money on Isak. The other one that's going to be interesting, bearing in mind what I've already said about him, is Salah, because he's got only a few games left at Anfield, and I do wonder if he's picked for the starting lineup, whether he's going to really want to try and turn it on. The other angle to that particular question is whether he does have the ability to turn it on, because from my point of view, having watched him earlier this season at Craven Cottage and watched quite a few Liverpool games, he looks like a spent force to me, which obviously is the cue for him to score a hat-trick. But yeah, so I would Ekatike and Salah for them, and Harry and Jedi for us. You want to score a prediction, don't you, Ash?
Yeah, I do, please.
I'm going to go for a 1-1.
1-1, that's a fair shout, I think. AJ, how about yourself, mate? A couple of players to watch and a scoreline prediction, please.
I think Virgil van Dijk is probably a player to watch for Liverpool. There's a lot of eyes on him at the minute because of his decline in form. When he originally joined Liverpool, you could argue the squad they had was a lot worse than the one now, and he was carrying pretty much the entirety of it on his back, and immediately impacted their change of form. Where at the moment it feels like he's a passenger to their decline, and it's really remarkable to see him under a different manager not be the same player that we've come to expect from him. A lot of that could be due to his age, but then we've seen centre-backs go on to 35, 36 and still win the Premier League, being the best defenders in the league. So it's hard to give him any leeway for being a centre-back, especially one that hasn't particularly relied on pace. So for me, it's got to be him, especially because we know Muniz has his number already. As for Fulham, I think this is going to be a very interesting game for Muniz if he gets to start, because he likes these big fixtures. He's got a little bit of Andreas Pereira about him, where for whatever reason he shows up in these big games, whether it be starting or off the bench. And I think that'd be very important for us. So I'm going to go with that battle between Rodrigo Muniz and Van Dijk. As for scoreline prediction, oddly enough, I'm caught between my head and my heart again, because my head actually says 2-1 Fulham this time, where my heart is bricking it and saying we're going to lose 3-0 because we're very Fulhamish. I'm going to go somewhere in the middle and go for the third time in a row and say a Desmond 2-2.
Yeah, fair enough. But for me, first to watch for Fulham, I agree with what Drew said about both Robinson and about Harry Wilson. But for the two players to watch for me in this one, are actually going to be ESR or Josh King, depending on who starts in that particular position, and actually Alex Iwobi. I don't know if anybody caught Alex Iwobi's international break. He managed to get sent off
Oh, yeah.
for hitting somebody. So it wasn't a great international break for Alex Iwobi, but he's been a key point to our squad over the last year and a half for sure. I really want to see him playing in the middle of the park more. I know that might be a bit hard at the moment because we're struggling a bit with fitness with wingers, especially since Kevin's been out with his broken foot. So that's that for that one. The other player to watch for Fulham is actually going to be Calvin Bassey, because he's not been away international break for the first time in ages. He's also potentially in the shot window as a player that we know there's interest from outside looking in at him, and these are the sort of games where eyes are going to be on him. So he could potentially have a really big game for us. But I also just want to see him have a big game for us because he's had a couple of quieter ones of late. For Liverpool, it's really hard because Liverpool have got a few injuries, and there are players that I definitely would be very wary of that aren't fit. But the two players that I'm wary of that are fit is Cody Gakpo being one of them, because he's one of those players that he doesn't really have to do much in a game, but he always pops up with moments. And when Fulham play Liverpool, Liverpool always have those bloody moments. So it's one of those ones. The other one is actually Isak. He's been out for a long time. He's back fit. They're probably going to look to play him, and he's probably going to be eager to impress, especially at Anfield. He didn't really get a chance to do that after the way he joined them, and then threw his pram, toys out his pram and stuff, and then got injured. So it's going to be a difficult one there. Scoreline prediction wise, I'm actually quite positive. I'm going to go 3-1 Fulham. I feel really positive going into this game, and I know that's mental. And I promise everyone, I've not been drinking today or anything. I just feel really positive that Fulham can get a result tomorrow. That probably means we're going to get battered, by the way. But I just think that Liverpool are really strong at the moment. They're really struggling. They got a big European game coming up, and they're gonna probably want to have one eye on that as being more important than getting 3 points against us, because they're probably more guaranteed Europe than we are anyway. It's one of those weird things. And they got a couple of easier games coming up in the next couple of weeks than Fulham. So that potentially could be that way. But lads, thanks very much for joining me on this match preview. Just want to say, firstly, want to send out a get well message to our other co-host Mozart, who has been not very well the last couple of days. We missed having you on, Moz. Get better. Hopefully you can be back for the match review. If you can't, then we'll see
hunt you
you
down.
soon. Yeah. Obviously, I also want to say that the Fulham ladies are playing at home at Craven Cottage on Sunday. If you haven't done so already and are thinking about doing so, get some tickets and get along. They're going to be lifting the league trophy on Sunday afternoon. So if you can get down to the cottage and watch them, give them support, then do so. It's a very big back-to-back promotion, getting it up to the National League. It's a good job and well done to them, obviously, for doing that. We'll be back on probably Tuesday with our match review to this game. hopefully with a positive result, considering how positive we've been going into it. Thanks so much, everyone who's joined us. Thanks everyone who has liked and shared, especially the video we made over the transfers over the international break. We will see you all soon. There's not really much more to say, is there, other than come on, you whites.